monarchy will be shifting in a slightly different direction.
I think it's safe to say that change is...
The folder had been placed directly in front of Prince William, its final page already marked for his approval. King Charles expected a signature, not resistance. But after reading the proposed powers being offered to Queen Camilla at Sandringham, William slowly closed the document and pushed it back across the polished table. His answer was quiet, final, and devastating. He would not approve it. Within seconds, the king's expression changed from expectation to unmistakable fury. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Charles had not summoned his son to debate the future. He believed the matter had already been settled. The proposal would appoint Camilla as royal steward of the Sandringham estate, a role designed to give her authority over ceremonial access, major estate events, selected staff appointments, and the use of private royal residences. Sandringham was not simply another royal home. It was privately owned by the monarch, passed through the sovereign's family, rather than held by the state, which meant every lasting decision carried personal and dynastic weight. William studied the clause dealing with long-term appointments and felt the room tighten around him. He asked whether the role would continue after Charles's reign ended. The king answered without hesitation. Camilla deserved security, dignity, and a place that could not be quietly erased by the next chapter of the monarchy. The prince understood the emotion behind those words, but he also heard the warning inside them. His father was not merely protecting a wife. He was attempting to shape the authority of a future king before that future had arrived. The tension deepened when William produced an attachment Charles had not expected him to see. It proposed that two figures from Camilla's trusted circle could attend estate planning meetings in an advisory capacity. Estate planning meetings were private discussions where long-term decisions about staffing, residences, ceremonies, and property use were made. To William, that language opened a door far wider than the title itself suggested. Charles gripped the edge of the table and demanded that his son reconsider. Senior aides waited nearby because the announcement had already been drafted, the schedule prepared, and the outcome assumed. William remained seated. He placed the unsigned pen beside the folder and said again, "I cannot approve this." The king stared at him in disbelief. Then William rose and walked toward the door. Charles ordered it closed behind him and summoned Camilla at once. The refusal had been only one sentence, but inside Sandringham, it reopened years of fear, resentment, and unresolved questions over who would control the monarchy's future itself. For Charles, the proposal was not merely an administrative appointment. It was a promise to the woman who had endured decades of judgment beside him. For William, it represented something entirely different, a permanent transfer of power that could survive beyond his father's reign. And for Camilla, seated alone in a nearby drawing room, the unsigned document carried a humiliating possibility that the future king did not trust her with the estate Charles considered their most private refuge. Charles felt the refusal far beyond the wording of the document. Sandringham was where family Christmases had unfolded, where private grief had been carried behind closed doors, and where generations had learned that monarchy was built as much on memory as duty. The estate was privately owned by the sovereign, meaning it belonged personally to the monarch rather than to the government. To the king, securing Camilla's place there meant protecting her from becoming temporary in the home they had shared. William saw the same estate through another lens. He thought of Catherine, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, because every decision made now could shape the world they would inherit. The prince respected his father's wish to protect his wife, but he could not accept a role that might limit his authority before his own reign had begun. He felt cornered between loyalty to Charles and responsibility to the future. Camilla remained beside an untouched tray of tea as an aide entered with the news. She did not react at first. Then the queen consort looked toward the closed door and asked, "Did Charles say why?" The aide hesitated, and that pause told her enough. She understood that William had not merely delayed the proposal. He had rejected the security she believed the king had already guaranteed. The queen had encouraged Charles to create the role, after learning through a private household briefing that future plans could reduce her influence once William became king. She feared losing more than authority. She feared becoming a guest in places where she had once stood beside the monarch. Charles understood that fear, and his determination to answer it had made him blind to how the proposal might appear to his son. Catherine found William alone and immediately sensed the weight he was carrying. The Princess of Wales listened as he admitted that refusing his father had hurt more than he expected. Yet the future king said signing would have been dishonest, because his concern was not simply Camilla. He feared her advisors could gain lasting influence over royal property through the position. Catherine let the silence settle before asking one question. Did Charles know what had happened during the earlier Sandringham gathering? William's expression changed. His refusal had not begun with the folder on the table. It had begun months earlier, during one carefully staged dinner that ended in a breach no one could quietly repair. Months before the furious meeting, the royal family gathered at Sandringham for what was presented as a private planning dinner. The evening appeared calm. Silver reflected candlelight, staff moved quietly, and Charles spoke warmly about continuity. But before dessert was served, William discovered that Camilla had invited two personal advisors into a discussion concerning the estate's future ceremonial use. That single decision transformed his private concern into open distrust and became the hidden trigger behind his refusal. Charles had arranged the dinner to discuss future responsibilities at Sandringham, including public openings, charitable events, residential access, and preparations for the next generation. Senior working royals were members of the family carrying out official duties on behalf of the monarch, and William believed only that trusted group would attend. He expected Charles, Camilla, Catherine, Princess Anne, and Prince Edward. No outside voices, no hidden agenda. Camilla changed the mood midway through the evening. She introduced two advisors from her personal circle and invited them to present ideas about estate events and future household appointments. The Queen Consort spoke as though their presence were entirely natural, but William immediately understood the danger. These were not casual suggestions. They concerned who could influence the estate, who could enter planning discussions, and who might shape decisions long after Charles's reign. William felt the betrayal sharpen when one advisor referred to Camilla's expected continuing stewardship. Stewardship meant formal responsibility for supervising part of the estate and guiding how it would be used. The prince had never approved such a role. No one had even asked him to discuss it. Yet the phrase was spoken as though his agreement had already been assumed. The silence broke everything. William placed his napkin beside his plate, looked directly at Charles and asked, "Has this already been decided?" The king hesitated. It lasted only a moment, but Catherine saw the meaning immediately, and Anne understood it too. Discussions had moved forward without the future king. Charles dismissed the objection as an overreaction. Camilla heard something darker. She believed William's resistance proved that she would be pushed aside the moment the crown changed hands. Edward tried to calm the exchange, while Catherine watched her husband retreat into a colder, more controlled silence. Anne confronted Charles privately after the dinner. The Princess Royal warned him that creating a permanent role without William's trust would turn estate management into a family battle over succession. The king refused to accept that judgment, but her warning stayed with him. William later requested every draft connected to Camilla's authority. Catherine watched him read them late into the night, underlining clauses that could preserve her influence indefinitely. Charles never learned that his son kept the earliest version, containing powers far broader than those later placed before him. When father and son met again, William was not rejecting a new idea. He was confronting a plan he believed had been softened, repackaged, and presented as a formality. The second meeting contained no advisors, no secretaries, and no prepared statements. Charles stood beside the fireplace with the rejected proposal in his hand, while William remained near the door, unwilling to sit. The king demanded an explanation for what he called an act of public disloyalty inside the family. William answered that loyalty did not require silence. Then Charles struck the folder against the table and delivered the sentence that changed the argument completely. "You do not get to overrule your king." Charles had summoned his son back after palace staff postponed the announcement of Camilla's appointment. The announcement was the formal public confirmation of her new role, and delaying it signaled that the plan had already begun to collapse. The monarch viewed that delay as humiliation. William understood that his refusal was no longer being treated as private disagreement. It was being framed as a challenge to the authority of the reigning king. Charles accused him of shaming Camilla and destroying his final chance to secure her place within the monarchy. He insisted that the proposal had been designed to protect her dignity, not weaken the future crown. William refused to accept that distinction. The prince said his approval had been requested only after the role had been discussed, drafted, and quietly promised. The king stepped closer and held the document between them. William opened the earlier version he had kept after the Sandringham dinner and pointed to the clause allowing Camilla to recommend permanent estate advisors. Permanent advisors were individuals whose influence could continue beyond a single event or household arrangement, giving them a lasting voice in estate decisions. Charles stared at the page and immediately understood what his son possessed. The truth landed hard. William had seen wording that had later been removed, softened, and replaced before the final proposal reached him. The future king then revealed that he had contacted Princess Anne and Prince Edward through separate private conversations. Anne warned that the wording could bind the next reign. Edward agreed that it created a second chain of influence around the estate. Both had advised him not to sign. Charles's fury suddenly gave way to something quieter. Hurt entered his voice. He asked whether William truly believed he was incapable of protecting the crown from Camilla's advisors. For a moment, the argument stopped being about clauses and authority. It became a son judging his father's judgment. William chose his answer carefully, but he did not soften it. "I believe you are protecting her from the future, even if it means deciding that future for me." The words had barely settled when the door opened. Camilla entered without warning and heard the final sentence. The argument had begun as a battle between a king and his heir, but her arrival made it something more painful, a judgment on her place inside the family itself. William appeared to stand alone when he rejected the proposal, but his decision had been shaped by a quiet network of royal concern. Princess Anne had studied the language. Prince Edward had questioned the chain of authority. Catherine had challenged William to separate personal discomfort from genuine institutional risk. Together, they had reached the same conclusion. Camilla could be treated with dignity without being granted a permanent estate position that restricted the choices of the next monarch. Anne understood why Sandringham carried such weight. The estate represented family continuity, private royal tradition, and the authority each sovereign would one day pass to the next. A sovereign was the reigning king or queen who held final responsibility for the monarchy. The Princess Royal believed no new office should outlast the monarch who created it, unless the heir had freely accepted its terms. Edward examined the proposal from another direction. He focused on governance, the system that determines who makes decisions and who answers for them. The Duke warned that Camilla's informal advisors could gain influence without being accountable to William or the official royal household. He also discovered that the proposed office would receive its own budget, administrative support, and direct reporting access to Charles. This was not a ceremonial honor. It was a working center of power. Anne sat opposite William during a private conversation and removed her glasses before speaking. She told the prince that refusing Charles would wound the king deeply, yet signing against his own judgment would create a quieter injury, one that could poison their relationship for years. William admitted that he feared appearing hostile toward Camilla, and reopening divisions the family had worked hard to contain. Catherine refused to let fear make the decision for him. The Princess of Wales reminded her husband that his duty was not to choose the least painful answer. It was to choose the answer he could defend when Prince George eventually asked why it had been made. William listened because she understood both sides, the suffering of a father protecting his wife and the burden of an heir protecting his future reign. Anne then confirmed something more troubling. Charles had considered announcing Camilla's appointment during an upcoming Sandringham reception before William's formal consent had been secured. The prince took a pencil, drew a hard line through the phrase, "continuing royal stewardship," and declared that those words marked the boundary he would not cross. Camilla soon learned through a documented household briefing that Anne had advised William. The queen consort felt personally betrayed, believing the Princess Royal should have defended the reigning king's wishes. Charles shared that anger. Instead of retreating, the monarch began asking whether he could establish the office without his son's signature. Unable to secure William's approval, Charles faced a choice between dignity and force, and fury was pulling him toward the full weight of the crown. The first visible consequence did not occur in a council chamber. It happened in Camilla's private sitting room, where staff quietly removed briefing folders, prepared for her cancelled Sandringham announcement. She watched each folder disappear into a locked case, understanding that the appointment had been stopped before she could publicly claim it. When Charles entered, still furious from his confrontation with William, Camilla did not ask whether the proposal could be saved. She asked whether his son had ever intended to accept her. Camilla remained seated, as an aide lifted the folder containing her prepared event calendar. Her hands tightened in her lap, but she refused to look away. The palace had postponed the Sandringham reception, the formal gathering where Charles planned to present her new duties to senior guests. Every draft schedule, appointment note, briefing paper, and letter connected to the proposed office was now being collected before the plan advanced. The Queen Consort turned to Charles and spoke without anger. William's refusal confirmed the fear she had carried for years. She might be respected while the king remained on the throne, yet lose every place once his son became monarch. Charles promised that he would never allow her to be diminished. Camilla answered that he had created this danger himself by advancing the proposal before securing William's trust. Charles felt the accusation strike harder than his son's refusal. He insisted that he had been trying to protect her, but she admitted something he had not expected. Through conversations with her advisors, Camilla had known they were discussing permanent authority over estate planning. She had believed the king had already settled the matter with William. That belief had allowed the plan to grow beyond simple security and into something the future king could never accept. The truth became colder. Charles revealed that palace legal advisors had delivered a written opinion. He could create the role during his reign, but William could abolish it immediately upon accession. Accession meant the moment an heir becomes the new sovereign, after the previous monarch's reign ends. What looked like victory today could become public rejection tomorrow. Camilla reached for the draft announcement, folded it once, and placed it inside the fireplace without lighting it. Charles then canceled a family dinner after learning that Princess Anne and Prince Edward supported William, deepening the fracture across the senior household. Later that night, William received a private request from Camilla. She wanted to meet him alone, without Charles, Catherine, or any aide present. For the first time, the woman at the center of the dispute would face the man who had stopped it, and neither would have the king standing between them. Camilla did not summon William to a formal drawing room. She asked him to meet her in the smaller morning room where the family rarely conducted official business. No aides waited outside. No papers had been arranged on the table. When William entered, she was standing beside the window, looking toward the Sandringham grounds. She did not accuse him of betrayal. Instead, she asked him to explain exactly what he believed she intended to take from him. Camilla had chosen privacy because any message carried through Charles would become another argument about authority. She wanted the truth without the king's anger shaping every word. William agreed for a different reason. The prince knew that rejecting the role without facing her directly would leave the personal wound open, and that wound could outlast every document connected to the dispute. The Queen Consort spoke first. She told William she had never wanted to control his reign. She wanted reassurance that, after sharing Sandringham with Charles, she would not one day become a tolerated guest, asking permission to enter rooms that had once felt like home. Her fear was not only about status. It was about belonging, memory, and the possibility of being quietly removed from the life she had built beside the monarch. William listened, then answered with equal care. His objection was never to Camilla remaining at Sandringham, keeping staff support, or receiving the dignity owed to the king's wife. His fear concerned institutional power, meaning formal authority that could shape decisions beyond personal comfort. If her advisors gained influence through the role, they could affect appointments, estate planning, and future access long after Charles's reign ended. Camilla did not defend that part of the plan. She admitted that fear had changed her request. What began as a need for security had slowly become a demand for authority, and she had allowed others to tell her the two were the same. William understood the confession because his own fear had also hardened him. He had treated every clause as a threat before speaking to the woman behind it. The future king then offered an alternative. Camilla would receive lifetime residential access, personal staff, security, ceremonial courtesy, and complete privacy in designated parts of Sandringham. She would be protected, but she would hold no permanent governing power over the estate. Camilla agreed to withdraw the original proposal herself, provided William promised the revised agreement would not be presented publicly as her defeat. She extended the disputed document toward him. The prince did not tear it. He placed it in the center of the table and said they should return it to Charles together. For the first time, they stood against the proposal rather than each other. Yet the hardest step remained, asking an angry king to surrender the promise he believed only he could keep. By morning, the dispute was no longer confined to Sandringham. A postponed reception, withdrawn briefing papers, and William's abrupt departure had created a vacuum that the media filled within hours. One newspaper captured the entire crisis with a stark front page, a photograph of Charles entering Sandringham alone, beneath the headline, "The King, the Heir, and Camilla's Future." Outside Buckingham Palace, cameras gathered as the private disagreement became a public referendum on power, marriage, and succession. Palace communications staff struggled to explain the cancelled reception without confirming that William had rejected Camilla's proposed estate role. A palace communications team manages official messages and protects the monarchy from confusion during a crisis. Every answer created another problem. Silence made the dispute look more serious, but a direct denial risked collapsing the compromise before Charles had even considered it. Broadcasters quickly framed the conflict as a battle over whether one reign could control the next. A sovereign was the reigning king or queen with final authority during that reign, but the question now was whether Charles could create an arrangement that restricted William after accession. Some commentators defended the king as a husband protecting his wife. Others praised the prince for refusing to surrender authority he had not yet inherited. The pressure became real at Buckingham Palace's main gates. A crowd gathered as newspapers displayed the image of Charles walking alone into Sandringham. That evening, a national broadcaster introduced the story as a collision between a husband's promise and an heir's responsibility. The sentence spread quickly because it captured the pain on both sides. Charles watched the coverage alone. He muted the television and stared at the headline carrying his own face. The monarch's fury slowly gave way to exhaustion. He had wanted to protect Camilla from future humiliation, yet his attempt had now exposed her position to public judgment. William faced a different burden. Supporters saw him as defending the future monarchy, while critics accused him of denying the queen consort basic security. The prince knew the compromise would protect her, but he also understood that the truth could still be twisted into victory or defeat. Palace officials prepared two statements. One announced a revised personal arrangement. The other insisted no permanent appointment had ever been finalized. Camilla rejected the second version immediately. She told Charles that describing the crisis as a misunderstanding would make the family appear frightened and dishonest. The queen consort placed William's alternative plan before the king. "This protects me without taking anything from him," she said. Charles looked down at the document and understood the final choice. Signing would preserve Camilla's dignity, but it would also admit that his original proposal had gone too far. The public expected a winner and a loser. Inside the palace, everything now depended on whether Charles could place the monarchy's future above his wounded pride. The final meeting was quieter than the confrontation that had begun the crisis. Charles sat at the same table where William had refused the original document. Camilla stood to one side. William stood opposite her. Between them rested a rewritten agreement that protected Camilla's home, privacy, household, and ceremonial dignity for life, but gave her no permanent authority over Sandringham's governance. Charles read the final page twice. Then he lifted the pen, signed his name, and ended the battle he had nearly allowed to divide them. Charles placed the pen down and looked toward his son. The revised agreement guaranteed Camilla continued residential access, personal staff, security, private use of designated Sandringham spaces, and ceremonial recognition for life. Ceremonial recognition meant she would retain formal respect without controlling estate decisions. William's future reign would remain free to govern appointments, budgets, residences, and long-term planning without inherited restrictions. The king told William that protecting the future crown should never have been mistaken for rejecting the present monarch. Yet Charles finally admitted that fury had hidden fear. He feared Camilla's place would disappear when his own reign ended. He feared their marriage would be judged again, and that the woman beside him would lose everything once his authority was gone. William accepted that pain without surrendering his position. The prince acknowledged that he should have spoken directly to Camilla before the dispute became a family crisis. Still, he remained certain that refusing the original proposal had been necessary. A future king could not inherit permanent limits created without consent. Camilla chose security over control. The queen consort accepted a protected home, dignity, privacy, and support, without demanding authority over Sandringham. Her decision preserved her place while respecting William's responsibility. Princess Anne and Prince Edward supported the compromise, allowing the senior royals to return to duty without pretending the conflict had never happened. The crisis left one clear boundary. A reigning sovereign may honor those he loves, but he cannot use the present crown to control the next reign. Charles walked from the room with Camilla beside him. William remained behind, closed the original unsigned folder, and placed it in private family records. William's rejection was not an attempt to humiliate Camilla or defeat Charles. It was the moment the future king proved that succession requires more than patience. It requires courage and strength to establish limits before power changes hands. The proposal ended without Camilla receiving the estate role, but the monarchy gained something greater. Love was protected, dignity was preserved, and the future crown was not promised away. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.